Good evening. It is Friday, April the 17th at 1:59 in the morning. And yesterday, the Nevada Commission on School Funding had a meeting, and I recorded it. And they were supposed to be addressing what's in this Senate bill, SB 543. And because most people don't even understand, here in Nevada, I guess it's just like we the people. We the people make the decisions, and everyone's supposed to be included. They have a parent involvement policy that doesn't really include everybody, but it says it does. And the community partners make it third party people. Well, if they can't engage everyone, well, darn, what can I say? It's kind of like right now, if you paid attention to yesterday's video or stream, you would understand that so many children in poverty don't have access to the Chromebooks. And I was just trying to understand what the dittos would do, because we just have to understand we live in a society where the federal government gave African Americans citizenship. We didn't really even need it because I think we were already here, but it really doesn't matter. We were enslaved in America. We were enslaved based on the color of our skin. And so, in the 60s, well, anyways, let's put it this way. We're free now. And a lot of people don't have or have not been places. We've not all traveled the same road. Let's not pretend. We weren't in the same rooms. We've not shared the same experiences. We're just not the same people. And everybody in the world has and shares a different life experience. And I believe that's a God thing. And also, I believe that this virus thing is a God thing. Let's not pretend. I keep on understanding that, I was looking at all this homelessness across America. And they were veterans. Can you imagine you put your life on the line for a country? When you come home, there are no services that help you transition into, real life. So that you can, be a part of the oversight of what you fought for. My dad was in the Air Force. And so I truly believe in community involvement and engagement. And my dad always told me, he said, make sure that you read what the law says, because ultimately it is the law. And ultimately, we all have to follow the rules. And so, I always try to make sure that I do my research first. But since and as I am of age, and I have been involved in many, many different organizations and volunteered many, many hours. And actually, I've learned so much. But understand me when I say on my journey to where I am today, it doesn't matter. It's not a matter of how much money you make in life. It's a matter of, what you're doing with, the gifts that God gave you. And how are you sharing? Because believe me, Black people have always feared being publicly involved, targeted for their beliefs, understanding that if they were given a position, that maybe there's 100 people in line waiting for that one position that they had, and if they don't do as they are told, perhaps they might not have that job. It's always a wake-up call. Even when I understand that some African Americans in political places have been put in jail for perhaps using campaign money in some other fashion or form, when I see it all the time, all over these years, how everybody does the same thing, and perhaps just he thought he could do it, but no, he can't. Because even if they let you do it and you're Black, the minute that they get ready, they'll pull it. Just like recently in Sacramento. What was it? Roberts Family Development Center. They got some money, and somehow they got that money, and it was part of the migrant money. Federal money, migrant, housing money. But he was using it for his program. And so he spent some money you know, celebrating people that were giving time and honoring, the program and the work that he was doing. And then all of a sudden, somebody didn't think that that was a good idea for him to be doing. And so they were saying that he was inappropriately spending the money. But really, reality says that he was doing work that everybody else claimed they were doing, and they're not. You just can't be living under these conditions. Understand me. Every child can learn. It's what they're learning. And believe me, the evidence of the investment in education for Black children goes in documenting willful defiance issues, because that's where the data is. It's not in the academic achievement, it's solely in the documentation of perceived behaviors. And I'll say perceived behaviors because there is no data that demonstrates that these children have even been given an opportunity to learn the tasks and then fail to learn the test and given an opportunity to learn the test again. See, education is built on foundation, and a lot of people just don't have no foundational skills. And with such a small number of children who had access to early Head Start and Head Start, they were Black children, it amazed me that it was like 330 in Clark County that were African American who had access to pre-kinder. But then I know that in legislation, I read somewhere Nevada, didn't force people to start before they were 7 years old. And so here we are in 2020, and you can suspend or expel an 11-year-old forever as if they're an adult. Truly. I mean, it's just, it was a bug. It was horrible. Ugh. And I was amazed because when I was looking for the data that would say you could measure the effect of the choices of what the different types of schools were offering to parents and families and all the people, you couldn't measure the maintenance of effort for African American children. I mean, there's just no data in the single plan for their students' achievement. I mean, there's just, what I found that in Clark County is that teachers get to choose where they want to work. And for the schools that were in program improvement and underperforming, had a lot of substitute positions there. So I didn't understand how substitute teachers could participate in the planning for the success of the students who were, at risk. I mean, I really don't understand how they determine how they support those children, because I do know as I chaired the school site council in California, and I was the DAC chair, that within 90 days of the first school year, and you have funding like federal dollars for Title I children, that you're supposed to reassess and reevaluate your plan and then resubmit it. I mean, but who's measuring anyway? I'm trying to figure it out. Who's monitoring anyway? Because I remember when I went to the NAACP meeting that the superintendent was talking about like 5th grade or something. I wasn't quite understanding where he was coming from. I was really trying to understand. And then just I was so disgusted, honestly, with the way the NAACP meetings are run here, because they're ran as if they're presenters. They get people to come and present to the people, and then they go home. They're not teaching people advocacy. I mean, I thought the NAACP was an advocacy group. And, teaching people how to independent. I mean, we are a people who are really not engaged in public policy. Yet and still we pay these taxes. And especially, I think about the money that goes into the tax system from our entertainers and our sports people. There's so many Black people in sports, and just think about all that money's coming back into the federal government to be redistributed for public services that Black people nowhere have any access to the oversight of. I mean, with the conversation. I mean, I'm not saying that black, I mean, I was talking on Roland Martin's thing, his little Roland screen public meeting, whatever. But this one guy said, it's like the children's fault if they get an F. And I'm saying no. I mean, once a child is below basic, they'll be below basic forever. So, when they're building those prison beds out by the number of children who are not reading in third grade, every year after the third grade is a social promotion. Because how can you ever catch up? No one ever reviews what you missed out on. And I've seen that. But it didn't happen for my children, but I've seen it happen along the way. Social promotion is just real. And I know that they had 8th graders in the class doing third grade work. And, I was probably the only parent in California that went through an Office of Administrative Hearings. But I helped a parent. But, the teacher came and testified that children with disabilities, that's why, they have special ed, because they need that extra support. And he said they're not expected to achieve academically. And he said that he gets his grades based on, now this is a testimony. It's in there. He was talking about how he decided to, grade the students based on how they were behaving that day. And every day this mother was being called to come and pick up her son. And he had a 4.0, and he was in 8th grade, and he was at San Brennan. And I was just trying to understand how he had a 4.0 in this SDC class. And then I found out about how the district Z-codes the curriculum. So supposedly allowing the student to access it and the teacher being the one to implement it or bring access to the student at the grade level that they are. So some kids were at third grade, but I think they stay there the whole entire time. Because once you're below grade level, like I said, you're just below basic and below. And social promotion is real. And that's why so many kids just drop out. It's frustrating to go to school every day and get a letter grade of F, or know that you can't do the work, or you don't have the skill level. And then just someone to easily say, oh, they just refuse to do it. What can I do? I can't make them learn it. No. So maybe this was the blessing, because now every child is in their own home. And they're supposed to have access to technology that allows them to have this distant learning. Distant learning is not ditto, because if you give the child the ditto and they download it and they print it, who's gonna, we're still talking about transferring paper. It's not feasible. And so I'm waiting to see what program they're going to use to educate the children, and which technology company they're willing to partner with to help create academic content that children with disabilities and all those children can learn from. Because believe me, my son is autistic and communication handicapped and has epilepsy, and he learned. And when I supported children, and I fought for a lot of children during the IP process, most of the time they were learning, they were getting something. But understand me, there's no requirement to do the maintenance of effort because there's no data at the local school sites. Now, I think I've talked enough. I want to get into this SB 543. And this happened May 13th, 2019. It was referred to the School Committee on Finance, and it affects the local government. Yeah, it's going to have a fiscal impact. And see, it says yes. And then so, relating to the education, creating the state education fund, revising the method of determining the amount of distributing the money to support the operation of public schools in the state, establishing certain requirements for the accounting and use of such money, and establishing requirements for the establishment of a budgetary estimates relating to public schools in the state, creating a commission on school funding to establishing its duties, establishing provisions relating to reports, expenditures by public schools, directing certain revenues to be deposited in the state education fund, and providing other matters properly relating to thereto, whatever. So anyways, why this is important, because there's federal law that dictates basically what happens with the federal money. And you can go and get this the Senate bill. It's at the Nevada Ledge. And let's just go to see, because the blue is how the new, and the O is the omitted. So let's go to the blue. Just quickly look into it because I've talked enough. Scroll down to the blue. Oh my goodness. We always like to talk how we're going to do this stuff. Okay. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in the Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, Chapter 387 of NRS is hereby amended by adding thereto the provisions set forth as sections 2 to 12 inclusive of this act. Section 2, 1. The State Education Fund is hereby created as a special revenue fund to be administered by the Superintendent of Public Education or Public Instruction for the purpose of supporting the operation of public schools in the state. The interest and income earned on the money in the fund after deducting any applicable charges must be credited to the fund. Money which must be deposited for credit in the State of Education Fund includes, without limitations, all the money derived from the interest of the state permanent school fund as provided in NRS 387.030. The proceeds of the tax imposed pursuant to NRS 244.33561 and any applicable penalties or interest less any amount retained by the county treasurer for the actual cost of collecting and administrating the tax. Okay, the proceeds of tax imposed pursuant to the subsection 1 of NRS 387.195. The portion of these monies in any special account created to subsection 1 NRS 179.1187, which is identified in paragraphs of the subsection 2 NRS 179.1187, the money identified in subsection 1 NRS 382. Now, see, you have to just go and look at all, and it doesn't tell you anything till you go and read that NRS code. But anyways, the real meat of it is they're talking about the money. Money, 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 money. There's some other stuff. And they're just talking about how the money and where it's going to go. And all this good information, but it really does get down to some stuff about how the money should support all the children. So we just keep on scrolling down. The statewide base pupil per funding amount for each pupil estimated to be enrolled in full-time program of distance education provided by a charter school or university for profoundly gifted pupils, and adjusted base per pupil funding for each estimated to be enrolled in a charter school. I mean, come on now, they're just breaking it down. Now we finally get to, participate, right? Right? You need to understand our children did not have access, and the willful defiance. How can any group of people have a 259% behavior infraction issue, higher than any other ethnicity in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in the world? It's almost like this is the new Mississippi, or what Mississippi used to be. But this is the new America. And this is the New World Order. And the New World Order says we all have a personal responsibility to step up the game. And I'm in my lane. I'm in my lane because I understand what I'm talking about. So let's just go through. That's to each school district, charter school, or university school, profoundly gifted pupils, an amount of money to be determined by the legislature when combined with any other resources available for this purpose, to provide additional weighted formula for each pupil estimated to be enrolled in school district charter schools or universities for profoundly gifted pupils. Now, are they just, an English learner, at-risk pupil, people with a disability? Okay, I'm just trying to understand. They're all pupils, and all pupils have a right to learn. Don't know how they're doing this money thing. But if you're this group right here at risk, you're generating, and this disability group and English, and all these kids are generating some additional funds. Okay, let's see. It just keeps on going to talk about this weighted formula. Let's see. We just want to know what they're doing right now. I mean, that's really what I want to know. I want to know what they're doing to target student achievement where the students are not making adequate yearly progress, and how they're addressing those needs of those students. But now, that was the questions before COVID. And now COVID happened, and they told me they can't answer my questions. That's what they told me. And first they told me, that they would only I would have to pay money if I wanted the information that I wanted. And then I just kind of like cut out the law what the federal government said about, how they have to do the maintenance effort for these Title I children, and how they have to present that information to the public if they request, and it shouldn't be done to families and parents, and that's part of that parent involvement thing, But here in Clark County, I can say it's a different. I don't know what it is. I've been trying to figure that out. I've been trying to have some nice conversations. I feel that I am, approachable, and to having a decent conversation. But as I can look at the data, even if people are not admitting that it's their children, just like this guy said, he never got an F. Well, you don't have to get an F if you're getting an A and you're only doing second grade work in the 8th grade. That's not, and then here they have something to do with, they had different levels and different levels of high school diplomas, and they meant different things. But, if you didn't have enough hours, you couldn't get a regular high school diploma. You get this certificate of completion. But hear me, it's weighted differently when you try to get federal monies, or, to try to continue your education. I just don't know what we're going to go through, because if everything really changes, people will have to really have some skills, or have to be considered, workers, essential workers, because this is not going to change, because American people are, for the most part, non-compliant. And that's exactly what we were supposed to be some 40 years ago. Marching to the beat of a different drummer, but everybody accepting responsibility to that pledge allegiance to the flag, that's kind of like, that's how it used to be. But anyways, when you have the federal dollars, you really have to account for how you're spending the money, and it must measure the maintenance of effort of the targeted students. And that was those students that were in that list, earlier. And I don't know why they have a lot of talking here, but they don't talk about the maintenance of effort. But I know that if you get the federal money, you have to do the work to ensure that all kids have access. See, I guess this is being distributed to, okay, let's see, what did I say? All money received by the school district to support necessary small schools, because, I don't know why I think they want to just target these rural schools, and when they build this brand new school way out there where 2 or 3 kids go, and I was looking, and they were actually saying that they were serving 7 children. Number seven, still had a principal and still had, other staff and teachers and stuff now. Because the people live way out. They didn't say they were doing no tele-teaching or distance learning, which, if you choose to be way out there, I think that's a more reasonable provision of access. But I don't get it, because if you're in the big inner city, they're not caring if you get to learn anything, and they're not caring if you're system dependent. So that's why they have all those homeless people downtown Las Vegas, and they're living on the street. And you can't treat the least of us to a point to where they're carrying the virus everywhere and it just never goes away. You see, all those people who are living on the street, who are getting sick and who may get sick again, and we don't know this virus, have to have places to shelter in and have to have some PPE. And they have to start learning to be personally responsible for the maintenance of their area or wherever they're assigned to live. Because really, otherwise, we never transition out of this, because people are going to be dying all the time. And so the only thing you could do is shelter in place. And that's just real. So I'm excited to understand that finally, and I think I've met a lot of people. I met the governor. I met the lieutenant governor. I met the attorney general. I met Mr. Thompson, and got to talk to him a little bit about his read by grade 3. And how do you ensure that every child will read by grade 3? What is the maintenance of effort? What are you doing to ensure that those children are reading? I don't know. Because what happens if they're not reading by grade 3? I think that everybody was supposed to report that. But I don't see no data. That was part of it. How do you ever start if you're not willing to acknowledge that simply you have to do outreach earlier? And that's just, and so, there'll be different opportunities online, because we have some great resources. We're living in this time in the world where there's so many resources. You can go to NASA online. You can go to, Disney. PBS. Come on, to have the Khan Academy. You can the Smithsonian Institute. Everything. Even the Black History Museum, the new one. Some of that's online. There's so many resources, and then C-SPAN has competition where children can compete for funding, and there's all these things, and even these earbud people, they have some kind of coloring contest. You can compete for $150. But hey, there's just everything in the world in technology. And then I guess this 5G is an issue, right? We don't know. But what we do know is this is April the 17th, 2020. And pursuant to any other clause in history, we've had Brown versus the Board of Education. We had the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I don't have to go and review history and how far we've come, because you know why? Every day when a new immigrant comes to America, they have the same rights as I do. And they have more, because they have ELL, English Language Learner, additional services in the public school system in America, and we all pay for that. And then our children aren't learning basic English. We got ghetto street stuff going on. Willful defiance issue. Compliance is something that comes from the plantation, comes from slavery. Fail to comply. Who gets to make that judgment? Someone who has an 8th grade education, who's working in law enforcement, and who's been trained for a couple of months, and then they take someone's life seriously, and we're just supposed to just suck that up, right? It's all good. Well, no, it's not good. And there are many, many other people who feel like I do, But we still have a responsibility to hold our elected officials, local elected officials, accountable, because we can't even talk about what's happening nationally, but we are responsible for the local issues. There are many, many local issues here in Clark County. There is no Moulin Rouge, there is no Cotton Club, and there is no foundational history of all the wonderful things that have happened. Yet and still we can have Black entertainers like Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson and Stevie Wonder, and come on, Michael Jackson came to Las Vegas and performed, and every major Black artist in our history in my lifetime have been here and performed on Las Vegas streets. And even when they couldn't come in the front door, they were performing here. And they're still performing here on the strip, but guess what? There's nowhere in the Black community for them, for Black people to socialize beyond 8 o'clock in the evening. So, you know, I love this shelter in place. I am comfortable in my own skin and in my own home. And more people should understand, not be afraid of this technology stuff. We're going to have to get our children assessed so that we can understand where they are and understand how much further and how much more support they need to get to be have access to a free and appropriate public education. Now scroll down to the bottom. I want you to just go online and download this document, because truly, if you don't understand what the intent of the federal dollars were, you can't advocate, and that's just real. And so, you know, it's supposed to help provide additional support on top of what the state would provide, so that the state could afford the burden of educating Black children and poor children and disabled children. But when you don't even use that money for them and just let them go by the wayside, I think it's a problem. You can't lie to yourself about how all children have access, because simply you can see the real facts about how all children don't have access right now. And I remember my sister asked me to help the young lady, and I tried to help her, but her mother was apologizing to me for being homeless and losing her housing, and then therefore her child had struggling in school. And she never told me about any of the support that she got from the local school district or from the county or anyone to help her in the situation. And actually, she winded up when I didn't get a chance to really talk with her. But then what happened eventually was my niece came here for this break right here before the COVID thing happened. And she went to go see her girlfriend, and that same day, that child's parent and the whole family was evicted because they were staying with someone, and they were living with someone prior to in the same complex. But somehow, when the boyfriend got kicked out, she went to another girlfriend's house there in the same complex. But because she was living with the boyfriend, they locked up her stuff and took everything, and wouldn't let her go back in the house, and wouldn't let her get her children anything. And her children stayed with me and my mom for about a week. And then the mother was able to get a ride and take her children to somewhere. But I'm saying that what kind of support really is happening for these families who are struggling? Because at least in Sacramento, we have student outreach workers, and they collaborated with the Housing and Urban Development. So when a family became homeless, that they could help get them in Section 8 and get them services, or work with the social worker and the well. And I just don't know how any of those programs are coordinated to help these families. You can't see that. It's not written in the single plan, and it's not written in the district information. I mean, you just don't see the partnership of the collaboration of services and the whole intent. When you look at America and you see that we don't have any PPE, well, states were supposed to be taking care of the people, and the federal government was supposed to be there to help ensure that the burden was met for the states to take care of their people. And somehow that just is broken right now. And I think we can all see, and we will see how broken it really is in the coming months. But right now, we're talking about what's going to happen in Nevada for the Commission on School Funding and how they're going to address the issues of ensuring that all children have access to a basic education and how they document that they have a maintenance of effort and how they show and demonstrate how they're supporting all children from pre-K to 12. I want to be able to see that data at the school site on the single plan, how it's supposed to be in law, and understand that those SOT teams are really functioning, and they're bringing in because see, nothing should stop, because we have technology and you see me right now, right? Nothing should stop the work of people when they can shelter in place and get online and communicate effectively. Because Zoom, there's so many programs out there that allow you to do web-based, you know, workshops and plan and support each other. This is a bad time, but it's not. Life has just changed. So we need to be ready for the change because it is a coming. Let's see. This is very long, and it just talks about how, in very detailed, what is supposed to be happening. Let's see. Oh, let's see what's striking. This, on or before this date, whatever, average daily enrollment pupils, except for otherwise, strike that. It's just changing, but including without limitation county reside in county enrolled in charter. And see, they're really only about these charter schools or these gifted programs. GT, I heard that a lot. GT program, GT, and I'm saying, what is GT? What is GT? And then I said, oh yeah, gifted and talented. But see, I had a problem in California because all the gifted and talented children, teachers were in one school and they trained there. But when they got ready to go back into the community or whatever, they got to pick where they wanted to work. They didn't have to work where we get all this additional money, get this additional professional development. They don't have to get back to anywhere. They just don't have to do that. So why have professional development that doesn't have to benefit the schools who are in program improvement, who need that additional support? I'm just trying to really just understand. And I try to have a couple of conversations with some folk here, but, they can't get past the data. I guess that's an embarrassment kind of thing that so many Black kids are so far, and then they just want to put it on the people. But guess what? People who don't have anything to give, you will find don't have anything to give. And their children don't have anything to give, and they have nothing to get either, because it just ain't happening. Especially when the public system only documents what they can do, and it never demonstrated what it tried to attempt to do, and how many times the student failed, or what was the maintenance of effort, or what did they do differently. I don't know. I don't. I haven't seen any evidence of how they attempted to target the support for transition. I say, okay, they brought in some new people in a school that had been program improvement for a long time, but the problem was it was an alternative school that was failing alternative children, and it had been failing alternative children for a long time. And I said, well, where's the data? What's different? Just because you brought in a different person didn't change anything, because the problem is that these children who are coming to this alternative program are already severely below basic. And, the targeted intervention and student achievement that has to happen to bring one student up from where they are when they're all jagged, even if they're in the same classroom and the same age, they're all jagged because it depends on when they started and what they had access to. And so you just can't just say, okay, here's the third grade book and we're going to be reading third grade level. So no, because some of those children aren't at third grade level, and they're just not paying attention because they can't do the work, and you're not communicating to them at their grade level. So I've seen it all, but it's a little bit much, because when I listen to the school board meetings here in Clark County, people have a little bit of thinking about, they're really just doing something very special, even if they don't want to work with those people over there. And they feel they have no obligation to help target the support of all students. And I just and it's okay because social promotion has been accepted here. And because you can't find the data. See, that's how you know it's happening. When you're socially promoting students, you can't find the disaggregated data by grade level and by student achievement. And there's somebody trying to tell me that I wouldn't find that data here because no principal is going to put it in writing as to what they're doing with the targeted subgroups. We're going to see. I can't wait because she said nobody's going to do it. It was somebody in your Title I, dude. It's real. So we just have to wait and see. Because people will say whatever they want to say. But you know, when the data says the data is real, it's just real. That's how it is. So anyways, this is a lot of writing for, you know, how Nevada is. Look, the count of children detained in the facilities for detention of children in alternative programs and juvenile forestry camps receiving instruction pursuant to the provision of whatever this is. And so what is it has some blue change in here. It says to the amounts appropriated pursuant to these sections or whatever. But you know, you're supposed to be educating those children over there too. And when I try to find out how those children over there, when they get locked up over there, how they targeting their support, and then to have that men's conference and to get an award from former President Barack Obama, and you know, to have it all about perceptions about how to accept people with dreadlocks or people who look different. Look, this is America. I think that you can't even count the nationalities of people who come here. But when it comes to the public school system, we really can target about the Black children who are coming from high poverty areas who have no transitional skills and no next steps because they didn't start school. They didn't get no pre-kinder. They ain't in Head Start, and we know it. We know that only 330 children, I think in 2019, I don't know, one of your data things. It was so low, I just had to look. 330, it was just low. And then I asked a couple of, you know, young African-American women about Head Start. They didn't know nothing about Head Start, just like they didn't know anything about the historically Black colleges. So, you know, I don't know. This is Nevada. This is still America, I thought. I was still living in the United States of America. My father was in the United States Air Force, and he retired in the United States Air Force. So and then my ex-husband, he was in the Air Force too, but he's now deceased. But I'm still here. So it's important to understand that as an American, we all have just a personal responsibility to, to go and grow. And to understand that we have a personal responsibility to, in essence, what should I say? We just have a personal responsibility to grow up, basically. And accept that we're Americans too, and an acceptance that we should be able to critique the services that are provided to people who look like us. And if they are not making progress, to suggest alternative support. Not alternative programs, because y'all got so many alternative schools here. And like I said, if you're only requiring 7 children, only 7, and then you've got these small schools, and you know, maybe they're not in congested big city areas, but they're like buildings, and then all of a sudden it's a school. There's one over here on Lake Mead. It just went up in a couple of months since I've been here. And then COVID happened. So life is changing. And life will come with lots of data, because the data that technology brings will demonstrate if the students can actually comprehend. And it has nothing to do with having a disability I mean, unless the child's severely mentally retarded or has some other issue where they're not learning, because special education has nothing to do with the level of intelligence. It has to do with every child learning differently. Either you're a kinesthetic learner, or a verbal learner, but you have to have really skilled professionals to understand how to address the needs of all children. And it's just, just because the child can't read the third grade book doesn't mean the child has something wrong with it. It just means the child missed something and there was no catch up. So where is going to be the catch up point when we do the basic assessments to find out where all African American children are in 2020? Because this is a national issue, so we really can see all the data. And I hope the Black Caucus, I got to listen to the Black Caucus. They had a national town hall meeting, and I got to listen in. And actually, I was able to record that, and it's on my website. Oh, somewhere it's on my Instagram. I think that's where I put it. But irregardless, that wasn't saved either. So we should save somewhere, but just just no access. We all just have to wake up. We'll all have a personal responsibility to join in the conversation and talk about what can change, possibilities, but the expectations have to be a little different. The expectation of getting a public education and after 12 years having the ability to transition to the next step, really having foundational skills should be a requirement of public schools. And so as we're having the conversation, I hope that tomorrow is different, but maybe it won't be. But maybe it will be because I'm sharing the video. So good night, and let me see. I gotta get down there. I'm gonna say, I don't know how many pages this is. How many pages is this? Ooh. It is 76 pages long. And read what was changed. And even if it was changed here, and then the legislative people did it here, there is federal law that addresses each one of these NRS codes. So you got to go look at that NRS code, and then you got to go look at the federal law, and then understand that the NRS code was supposed to be addressing that issue in the federal law. And see, I don't get it, because somehow when you get to the school level, they ain't got no federal understanding of any requirement for Title I or any other money. It's just, hey, we the people. And we the people just doesn't include me, I guess, when I'm asking questions, and people choose not to respond. And that's okay, because hey, this is America. You have a choice, and I do too, to continue to ask these questions. And so anyways, I'm going to sign off tonight, and I would hope that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then I will take this and share it with my Facebook page and anywhere else I can think about sharing. But I'd like to say good night and stay safe, and understand that this is not going to go away, but we have an opportunity to really, really be blessed, so we can take back the harvest of our children and ensure that we provide a better tomorrow for all Americans, and all Americans, because that's what we are. But whatever you want to put to the front, just an American. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a good night, and subscribe. I'm going to stop the video now. So make sure you follow me on Facebook or subscribe to my YouTube channel.